What up? T-Bob here.
And Jake as well.
And look at you. You done stumbled upon little OTB Saints, where we bring you all the latest black and gold coverage.
Who are the Saints going to draft? Who's going to be their quarterback? What does the salary cap look like? All that information and more.
Hope you enjoy it. Like, subscribe. All right. I want to talk a little Saints here. So this has been some light chatter over the weekend. But in case you missed it, the Arizona Cardinals just straight up cutting DeAndre Hopkins, just deciding to part ways. And, look, I don't know exactly what's going on over there in Arizona. I think it all looks pretty toxic outside looking in, right? I think there's, as we always talk about in sports, there's nothing that generates more toxicity and more ill will than falling short of expectations. And I think if you look at the Cardinals' rhythm during the Kyler Murray era, it is kind of perfectly crafted to make you angry. If you were a fan, a part of the organization, a leader, like everything about it. And what I mean is because you always get off to these hot starts and it looks like, oh my God, you're like maybe going to win the NFC West. Oh, you're like a lock for the playoffs. Like maybe you're even like a Super Bowl contender. And then you just have these catastrophic collapses. And it's been consistent. And then it's also paired with a quarterback that has really bad body language. That was obviously so out on the former head coach. He's out here just publicly shaming him. A quarterback who you don't even know if he's doing the right thing, to the extent where you had the now infamous homework clause, where you decided to pay him over $200 million, but try to sneak in there that you have to study X amount of hours per week. Hey, guys, if you're putting that clause in there, maybe don't give him over $200 million, or do, but don't put the clause in there, right? So it just, the entire situation feels really bad, top to bottom. And then you bring in a new coach to try to fix it. Philadelphia Eagles defensive coordinator Jonathan Gannon, who, of course, we saw the very awkward Michael Scott-esque introduction that he had to the team. Zoom, zoom, pew, 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 weapons. It was weird. It was weird. But the point is, yeah, of course, he's going to look to break things and rebuild them in his image. You can't do that with the quarterback. You got to stick with the quarterback. But obviously, DeAndre Hopkins, Kyler Murray, not on the same page. Defensive coach wants to send a message as well, right? That, look, nobody, except for Kyler Murray, is above the rule of law. You better buy in or you're out. And I just almost fell over. And, then next thing you know, DeAndre Hopkins just cut, which is, we are talking about a guy who just a few years ago, remember when we were all yelling about Mike Thomas being the best in the league? Who was the counter? It was actually, no, it's actually DeAndre Hopkins. You were talking about one of the NFL's elite receivers is suddenly available. We talked about trading for Hunter Renfrow, which I still like that as a move, right? But even then, you have to give something up. You just have to woo DeAndre Hopkins and pay that man. Now, despite that, I don't even think that the Saints would have really entered my brain in terms of potential landing spots, simply because they seem pretty set at receiver and because I don't exactly know where the DeAndre Hopkins attraction to New Orleans would be. And not much of that has changed, except that there's a lot of talking heads. And Jeremy Fowler of ESPN was one of the lead voices here, but it's not just him. I saw this on a few different lists where they were looking at best fits for DeAndre Hopkins, and the Saints are firmly in that number. Like from the Fowler piece alone, like he mentioned Bills, Chiefs, Jets, Cowboys, Saints as potential best fits. Let's dive. Okay, now I'm distracted, but I do want to dive in, and I don't mean I'm distracted in a bad way. You shook your head when I said Cowboys, Taylor. Why? What's going on?
I love DeAndre Hopkins. I would love to have him. I'm not necessarily sure he's a great fit in Dallas. You got kind of your deep threat in CeeDee Lamb.
Yep.
You just signed Brandon Cooks. He's going to be that slot guy, that guy across the middle. When Gallup's healthy, he's a good downfield vertical threat anyways. I just feel like as a Cowboys fan, if Dallas loses a game this year, I'm not going to be like, well, man, if we had DeAndre Hopkins, we would have won that game. I think it would be a good I think it'd be a good addition. I don't know that he's like a must-get great fit. That's my only thing.
That's a good point. I guess it's not too dissimilar with the Saints, though, right? You really like you have Michael Thomas back, which you think if he's healthy that he'll be your lead dog. You have Chris Olave, who looks like he's ready to flourish, and he's out here making uber contested catches in OTA, something that he was not good at last year. Shahid's pretty solid. Maybe throw him in for something. So, I kind of feel you. And then, so here's the point, though. Let's explore the question. Why would DeAndre Hopkins want to go to New Orleans? Because if you look at the other options, And you would guess that maybe after this most recent contract and everything that DeAndre Hopkins would want to win over everything else, though there's been some talk that he actually wants a good contract more than anything else. But like if he wants to go ring chasing, every one of the other teams that we named are a better fit, right? I mean, if he goes to the Buffalo Bills, you are immediately relevant to winning a Super Bowl. If you go to the Kansas City Chiefs, you are immediately going to win a Super Bowl. The Jets, okay, that's fair. I don't know that I would say the Jets are better positioned, but it's really hard with Aaron Rodgers and a rejuvenated Aaron Rodgers to not feel like that Jets franchise is about to take off. And especially if you give that man a weapon like DeAndre Hopkins, well, that makes you, like, it's funny, Taylor, because I could, even though you didn't say this, I would say that part of your Cowboy reticence comes from you don't fully believe in Dak, right? When you have a quarterback, and maybe that's not true, but I'm just using this as a vault to say that, like, when you do have an excellent quarterback that you do believe in, well, getting a receiver, the value is multiplied, right? Like sending DeAndre Hopkins to Kyler Murray is maybe like a 1x return. Sending him to Aaron Rodgers would be like a 2x return, maybe a 3x. Do you want to defend or how do you feel about the Dak
I understand what you're saying, and I'm not crazy about Dak. He's a better quarterback than Kyler Murray, but they have some of the same characteristics. They're kind of inconsistent when the game's on the line. Hopkins is a guy who wants the ball. Dak likes to spread it around. He already has a good relationship with CeeDee Lamb. I don't know how the Dak-DeAndre Hopkins connection would be. And Hopkins is, the big personality, the guy that wants the ball. I kind of feel like there'd be a little bit of clashing there.
Yeah.
Kind of like there was with Kyler Murray. That's just my thought on it.
Dude, I would love to see how Mike Thomas and DeAndre Hopkins would coexist
same thing.
in a room with alphas. I think that could potentially be very tough as well. So it's like I don't want to get too excited here, but because again, it depends on what DeAndre Hopkins wants. If he wants to win immediately, as much as I do like this Saints roster this year, and they're going to be frisky and they're going to be fun, and I think they should win the South, and I think they should make the playoffs, and I think that would be a massive success to prove that you can have created success post Breeze Payton, right? But despite all of that, there is no doubt that these other teams are objectively better spots just for pure winning. Now, Fowler does also report that DeAndre Hopkins and what he's looking for is a sizable contract. And this is maybe the one great advantage that the Saints would have over these other teams is that, again, if he wants to go ring chasing, he's going to have to do it at a discount. The other teams are named, they just don't have the cap room. The Saints, how ironic is this? Despite you all being told for an entire offseason, the Saints, financial management is awful and they have no money, blah, blah. The Saints have $14 million in cap space and can actually offer Hopkins more money than any of these other teams can, especially right here in year one. But here's the question, and Mario, I'll go to you with this. Given that you're a big Saints fan, would you break the bank for DeAndre Hopkins at this point? Would you give him that sizable contract?
Yeah, no. I think he's still a solid player. He had 717 yards and 3 touchdowns last year in just 9 games. And actually, I called his first game back from his suspension. It was against the Saints. He had 100-plus yards. So I think he's a solid player. But doing what you're describing, I think, would be really irresponsible from the Saints' point of view, both for this season and going forward, just in terms of the payroll and how you want to, divide what you pay your team. So I do not think that would be a good move.
So I am going to take a bit of a cheap out here. And I'm going to say that I trust the financial wizardry of Mickey Loomis and Kai Harley. Kai Harley especially in that, right? He does the heavy lifting. He should get more love. And so if you commit a big number to Hopkins, I think it's going to look scary on paper. But like the same way that, again, it looks scary on paper this offseason, and now you have $14 million in cap space with which to play, like I do believe them capable of threading that needle because I've seen them thread it time and time again. So then it's a question of, do I think it's a fit? And I think you're all in on Derek Carr. I think and Dennis Allen needs to win. And so I believe if you're all in on a quarterback, any resource that you provide that quarterback with will be a benefit. And although there could be some potential clashing between a Mike Thomas or DeAndre Hopkins, there could also be a potential spark, right? Iron sharpens iron, all that. Suddenly another alpha enters the room and the two alphas push each other to try to see who's going to be the best. Like, so I would do it. And again, that's a cheap out because I'm really ignoring all the financial implications, just saying that the Saints can make it work in a way in which it will be palatable. But we'll have to see what DeAndre Hopkins is wanting. Does he want that money legitimately? Do the Saints even want to pay that money? Or does he want a ring? And again, the Saints are pretty good, but I don't, they're in the Bills or the Chiefs. And if he goes to the Bills or the Chiefs, he is immediately day one Super Bowl relevant. So we will see. Crazy, though, that this late in the game, you have premier receiver just coming up for grabs. Wow, just amazing black and gold takes right there, Jake.
I don't think I've ever heard any takes that are better than the two guys that just gave you that take.
And you can keep getting them by going ahead and liking, subscribing, ringing the bell to get notifications when we post. Have a great day. We'll see you on the next OTB Saints.